celebrating Pride Month on Wish TV. Brought to you by Buick and Indiana Funeral Care.
Well, behind the wheel and on the track, he's setting records. But when he's not racing, this driver is known for being an advocate for inclusivity.
It's a true love story of wheels, cars, and racetracks. For Travis Shoemake, it was a no-brainer to keep the family tradition going.
I know you come from a racing family, but how did you decide, hey, this is something I want to do?
I grew up around the sport of drag racing, in the pits and in the staging lanes. My dad got me into competitive shifter kart racing as a teenager, kind of as the best way to get racing experience, be side by side, close to the ground at high speeds, navigating turns. So I was racing go-karts until I was about 15 when, unfortunately, my father passed away. So I took about a 15-year hiatus from that adventure in drag racing, and in the beginning of quarantine, realized that was a chapter of my life that maybe closed too soon.
And after a short break, Shoemake is finally living his lifelong dream of drag racing. He goes on to explain the difference between the Indy 500 and the NHRA U.S. Nationals, which will take place right here on this very track.
Speeds are far more intense, right? So it's still, although Formula One and IndyCar are, both high intensity, certainly more of an endurance sport compared to my 3.9 seconds down the racetrack. So I'd say, the two biggest differences are the adrenaline and the rush of that launch for both the fan and the driver. And then also the fan that watches is different. I think, you're going to find in IndyCar and Formula One a little bit more of an international, maybe even a younger crowd.
Do you feel some type of responsibility to other athletes like yourself, maybe for kind of holding that as a badge of honor?
NASCAR has done a great job this year of elevating diverse voices and, making putting their stake in the ground on the topic of LGBT inclusion in their sport. But drag racing has been a leader in diversity since the 70s. We've had African American, female, Hispanic world champions for the last 40, 50 years. So me being the first LGBTQ driver in this sport, isn't that big of a deal because we've been turning heads and kind of changing and setting the pace in diversity since the beginning. So it's important for me because there are so many more fans that could be coming to the drag strip, so many more sponsors that could be on the sides of cars if we just remind everyone that we are completely open to everyone. And so I do feel there is a bit of a responsibility that I've taken on to ensure that I am successful in the sport and that I, lay the groundwork for future generations of drivers.
Racing is not his only passion. He's also heavily involved with LGBTQ plus homeless youth, and that started many years ago.
Coming from a family that was extremely embracing of my sexuality and supporting me, I realized that there are those that are not in that same situation. In fact, the numbers continue to get larger. So in my home state of Arizona, more than 50% of youth that come out when they're a teenager in some areas are disenfranchised and kicked out of their home. So coming from a home that was warm and embracing, I felt that there was a responsibility I felt really since being in college to give back and to provide opportunities to show support to those in need.
But now his focus is the fall.
The U.S. Nationals, that's our big race. So that's our Daytona 500, that's our Indy 500. The U.S. Nationals is the biggest race of the season. It's a race my dad has competed in and made it to the final round over 10 times in his career. It's a big race, for me to get back to. So last year I was there, as a fan and as a licensed driver, but this year will be my first year competing in the category in Top Alcohol Dragster. I'm most excited to be in Indianapolis where motorsports is, all major motorsports are based, and we're seeing the shift in diversity being so important to both NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, and in drag racing. And to do it in Indianapolis where the fans are the best and, the crowds are the largest, to do it in Indianapolis this September is going to be a big deal for me and I think for the LGBT community in motorsports.
Pretty good story. Shoemake hopes that being a gay man in this sport will encourage others like him to feel welcome and want to race. The U.S. Nationals will take place Labor Day weekend at Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway.